So my name's Jase McCarty. I work for VMware in the storage and availability business unit. And today I'm going to talk about HyperConverged Infrastructure and really what you need to know. So I haven't prepared any slides. This is really kind of ad hoc, but we'll cover some of the things around HCI and really what you need to know. So when it comes to HCI, there are a lot of different ways that it can be consumed, especially from a VMware perspective. Really our product that we focus on to really complete the entire portfolio is VMware Virtual SAN. So VMware Virtual SAN combined with your compute of choice, if you will, as well as either our virtual distributed switches or VMware NSX, can really give you a complete solution from a hyperconverged infrastructure perspective. Now when it comes to choosing a hyperconverged infrastructure, it's really important to realize the delivery pattern, right? And what I mean by that is hyperconverged is really about getting everything you need from a compute, from a storage, from a networking, all in a single small form factor platform. Right? So one of the things that we really like about VMware Virtual SAN is really we focus on what we call storage policy-based management, so SPVM. I was talking with a customer a couple days ago, and they were a little bit challenged when it came to how do we consume storage from virtual SAN? How do we consume storage in a hyper-converged infrastructure type platform? And it's really the way that VMware provides HCI is a little bit different than some of the other players out there. Virtual SAN is embedded within the hypervisor. Really, if you know vSphere, you know virtual SAN. It's really not hard to manage and deploy. From a traditional storage perspective, compared to some of the other HCI players out there, VMware Virtual SAN really gives you the capability of applying policies per object in a VM. And when I say per object, things like your swap space, things like your VMDKs, your configuration files, your home space we would call it, where you can really custom tailor and custom tune the performance and also availability of virtual machines. Traditional storage, you go and you have the conversation of, I need some more performance. I need to go in and create another LUN. It needs to be, let's say, an accelerated fast pool or something like that. When you do that, obviously you've got to move the VM off of an existing data store to the new data store you've created. Sometimes that requires conversations with, let's say, the storage team. When it comes to a hyper-converged infrastructure, you really need to have the capability of being able to, on the fly, be able to change policies when it comes to storage performance or availability, like I said. VMware's approach from a hyper-converged perspective is really giving all the control to the virtualization admin, along with some help from the storage admin, especially when it comes to sizing and that type of thing, right? We've got a couple different options when it comes to hyper-converged. Do you have, or do we have the capability of either all flash configurations or hybrid configs, or we use an acceleration tier to really provide the amount of IOPS we need from a hybrid configuration. We also have the capability of running our hyperconverged infrastructure on as little as 2 nodes. Right. So as we're deploying hyperconverged, where does it make the most sense for us? Right? And when I say where does it make the most sense, do we have let's say a business critical application that we require an all flash configuration, or do we have like a small remote office configuration where we only need a couple hosts and it doesn't really make sense to invest in let's say 3 or more nodes from a hardware perspective? Since our recent introduction of a 2-node supported configuration with Virtual SAN, we now have the capability of just doing that. 2 nodes in a hyper-converged solution. Not all the players do that. Now, when it comes to hyper-converged, the way that we deliver storage with vSAN, again, as I mentioned, everything is built into the hypervisor. We don't really require a separate virtual storage appliance to aggregate resources and provide those up the stack. As a result, we typically don't require a lot of RAM and don't require a lot of CPU. We can dedicate those resources back to the VMs themselves and the workloads that they require. So, couple that with replication. If we're deploying an HCI solution, how do we, let's say we've got it at the edge, or we've got it across data centers, or multiple data centers within a single campus environment, how do we then protect that or replicate that? Since the introduction of vSAN 6.1, we've actually introduced as little as 5-minute RPOs with vSphere replication. Include that with VMware SRM, and we can very easily protect that hyperconverged solution with either a combination of virtual SAN and traditional storage, or virtual SAN at the source, and also virtual SAN at the target. So when it comes to HCI, it's really important to keep in mind, what's the use case? How am I going to consume these resources? As needs change, what's the process of consuming these resources? All right, so, or what's the process of growing these resources, is really what I mean. Do we scale out? Do we scale up? How are our costs realized when it comes to scaling out or scaling up? VMware Virtual SAN, we have the capability of running up to 5 different disk groups per host. A good example of how it's very cost effective to consume virtual SAN is we can literally start off small with a single disk group with a given amount of capacity. As we decide to grow, we can simply add additional disks, additional caching and additional disks. We can then grow, and even though our capacity has not changed, we don't pay any additional licensing costs. In conjunction with that, what's our use case? Are we using virtual SAN for, again, business critical apps? Using virtual SAN for virtual desktops? A really good example of HCI with vSAN and virtual desktops is the fact that virtual SAN or VMware Horizon Advanced Suite and Enterprise Suite, along with virtual SAN, is free. So whether you choose a hybrid config or an all-flash config, that license is included in the cost of the virtual desktop environment. Now, if we were to extrapolate that from a hyperconverged perspective, and we look at that cost, we're already buying servers to accommodate for the virtual desktops themselves. Our storage license is included. At scale, it's a very cost-effective solution, virtual desktops and a hyperconverged infrastructure. So in conjunction with that, as I mentioned, business critical applications, we've got, I actually have a conversation tomorrow, a session where we cover a 3-node Oracle configuration where we can achieve upwards of 3 million IOP or 3 million transactions per minute. Let me clarify, 3 million transactions per minute on a 3-node all-flash cluster. So as far as HCI being ready for enterprise class workloads, tier 1 applications, hyperconverged is definitely a distinct possibility. And if we look at the cost of compute, individual storage, whether it be a traditional storage configuration or some other HCI players in the space, VMware Virtual SAN is very compelling. So a lot of different things that we can do when it comes to HCI. Is HCI, again, is it for a siloed type configuration, or is it general purpose use cases, or specifically robo-configs? Right? So it's really important to look at the type of workload, whether that workload is going to require a significant amount of IOPS. Again, like I mentioned with our business critical app, Oracle with over 3 million transactions per minute on a 3-node cluster. Is that really necessary? Maybe we can get by with a hybrid config. It really all depends on the number of IOPS that we require. When it comes to HCI, it's really, again, important to look at the overall cost of the solution. And when I say cost, the cost of the compute, cost of additional storage, cost of licensing for either hosts or capacity, in conjunction with the capabilities of that and resource requirements. Do I need to dedicate particular resources to the storage function of my hyperconverged appliance, if you will, or my deployment? Do I have to, do I require an additional talent set when it comes to managing the storage? Or can I simply, through a policy, go ahead and make a change to an individual VM or different components of the VM to give me additional performance or additional availability? So, in conjunction with that, what type of services are we providing with that particular hyperconverged appliance? A good example of of some of the additional services, vSpecs Blue, which is an Evo Rail iteration, as well as some of the other options out there, also have some additional services included. So the big question is when it comes to HCI, what are the different pieces that are going to bring value to your environment? Is it easy to manage? Does it require additional resources? Will it meet the need from an IOPS perspective? Will it meet the need from a capacity perspective? Speaking of capacity, we've recently announced at VMworld US that we've got currently a beta in the works where we're adding deduplication in this beta, as well as erasure coding, and specifically when I say erasure coding, RAID 5 and RAID 6 over the network, as well as a couple other features that some of our customers have asked for. So I would say that HyperConverged is rapidly growing, and VMware is adapting to the challenge as customers ask for additional capabilities and feature sets within Virtual SAN. I'll say that HCI is being one of the most widely adopted delivery mechanisms as of late. VMware has grown significantly in this space, with over 2,000 customers inside of the first 18 months of Virtual SAN. So HCI is definitely here to stay, and can give you a very significant amount of compute, performance, capacity, in a very small platform that's very easy to use and doesn't require a specific skill set. All right. That's about it.